Hey, honey.
Yes, Barry?
Let's get out of here.
Where are we going?
Where do we always go?
Así en el viento, este ritmo de palmas, sin mi naturaleza, hasta encontrar la playa. Por eso grito al mundo, yo soy de Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.
Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I'm your host, Barry Kessler, and I'm just so happy to be introducing you to my favorite vacation destination. Hey, maybe it's even yours, and that's Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That music you're listening to is performed by Alberto Perez. Now, Alberto is the owner of the Lapa Lapa group of restaurants. Those are the Lapa Lapa, Puerto Vallarta's oldest restaurant, the famous Los Muertos Beach, and the El Dorado Restaurant and Beach Club right next door. So you can enjoy that fantastic view of the Los Muertos Pier, all lit up at night in beautiful colors, or during the day in its grand splendor for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Seated with your toes in the sand right at the water's edge. It's so romantic. It's so Puerto Vallarta, my friends. This week, we are going to talk about leasing a property in Puerto Vallarta long term, not just a week or two or a couple of months during the winter months or the high season, as we like to call it, but for the whole year. We're going to be visiting with a guy whose name is easy to remember. It's JJ Vallarta, and JJ will talk about the kind of properties that he leases out and how you should go about finding the right place long term. But before we get to JJ, let's see what's happening this week in Puerto Vallarta, the 11th of August, 2021. Cases of the Rona are spiking in Mexico just like all over the world. Hospitalizations are up to overflow levels as folks line up for their vaccinations, and the governor has stepped in and ordered bars and nightclubs closed for the entire month of August. Restaurants are to keep proper distancing, 50% capacity seating. They must be closed by 12 midnight, and we will see if there are any further plans to limit vacationers and locals and businesses. Alfaro said, back last week, he said Jalisco, I'll read here. Jalisco Governor Enrique Alfaro Ramirez announced that Jalisco is now in the red light status due to the increase in infections and hospitalizations due to COVID-19. In an interview for the media, he reported that the health board will be meeting on Monday to see what actions they will take and what adjustments in hospital capacities they need to make. Alfaro said, in general, we are clear that it's very difficult at the moment to propose new closures of activities. Let's see what new measures are taken by the board that will convene on Monday at 8 in the morning. And Alfaro did speak last Monday, and he basically said that he really didn't plan to close anything else just yet, that they're going to give it 12 more days to see how trends are going. He did say that there is room in the hospitals for COVID patients. Now, he was talking about, of course, the entire state of Jalisco. He did mention that compared to January, when the virus was at its most deadly, there are actually more cases right now than there were back then. And although there are more cases that are positive, far fewer are in the hospital. In fact, half the number that were in the hospital in January are in the hospital right now. So cases seem to be less severe. He mentioned that they plan to get kids back to school in person in September, and that they're going to also have a virtual option for families that are more concerned, want to keep their kids at home. So the bars, the nightclubs, they will remain shut down until the end of August. Of course, they plan to revisit what they're going to do next. That was 12 days from Monday. I think that's going to be the 21st of August, if I'm not mistaken. And in the meantime, they are pushing as hard as they can to get as many shots into the arms of the folks in Jalisco. They're looking for everybody over the age of 18 that they can track down and jab. Now, we're going to wait and see what will happen. Of course, anything can happen when I come to town, and, well, I'm coming to town at the very end of August. We'll see. Now, we do know, of course, that Independence Day celebrations have been canceled, as well as the Day of the Dead. So September and October are out of the question. So, hey, let's call Christmas and New Year's and, call it a day. I mean, that's the way it's going, isn't it? Getting a little bit repetitive, wouldn't you say? Now, speaking of the Rona, Salvador Estrada sent me a message last week. He said he was a little bit desperate. So I called him up, and he tells me that his sister and his brother-in-law and his brother and his sister-in-law and his niece all have the Rona. Said they were all quarantining in their homes, and that they were really sick. So I asked him, I said, "How are you feeling, Salvador?" And he said, "I'm fine." And of course, I know, I've been to their house. They all have their own houses. He's got his own, so they can all do their own quarantine thing without sharing anything with Salvador, which is pretty good. He's, got his own place. So I asked Salvador, I said, "So Salvador, are your brother and sister vaccinated?" And he said, "Yeah, both of them. Both brothers and sisters and brothers, they're both double vaccinated. But then the niece that was not, he said she was, she got the Rona from them." So I said, okay. So I asked Salvador if he's vaccinated, and he says no. But I'm thinking maybe I should. I'm all, Salvador, maybe you just ought to wait just for a little while. Salvador is on the Malecon. He's been on the Malecon for over 20 years. And he sees everybody that walks up and down that Malecon. He probably has caught every disease that's walked down that Malecon because people hand him money. If you stand there and you watch him, he's got his hands in a money bag all the time. He's taking coins and handing people stuff, and then he wipes them off, and he eats, and he wears a mask all the time, but he's got his hands on the mask. I mean, Salvador, I'm guessing, is probably pretty immune to this stuff. But anyway, I said, just wait, whatever you do. So I asked Salvador, how long his family members have been sick. He said 2 weeks and 12 days, and the niece had been sick for 9 days. So I got hold of my friend, Jack Dickerson. Jack is a lucky dog. Jack lives in Puerto Vallarta. He sells real estate in Puerto Vallarta. He is with a Coldwell Banker. So if you need a good guy to sell your real estate, go see Jack. Anyway, I asked him if he could do me a favor. If I sent him money via PayPal, would he be able to go see Freddie over at Farmacia Olas Altas? And, we've had Freddie on the show before, long time ago. And I asked, I asked Jack if he'd talk with Freddie, give the information to him about the subjects, that they were all double vaxxed, that they had pretty severe symptoms, and basically, tell them that you need the drugs so that they can get back to health. And he said, no problem. Next morning, he went on down, talked to Freddie, and he did a great job. He actually set up his, he recorded the whole conversation for me so I could hear it all in Spanish and see the whole thing, the whole drug combination that was being recommended for these people. He actually prescribed Cefagen, 500 milligrams. It's an injection. It's a combination medicine. It's prescribed to treat various types of bacterial infections, fights against microorganisms and prevents their growth. It says here, reading about the drug. Then Tavadin Flu, Collins, 75 milligrams, which I figure is similar to Tamiflu. And then a Redoxin double action orange effervescent tablets, 1,000 milligram vitamin C and 10 milligrams zinc. Anyway, he wrote all the different instructions for all the different dosages, put them all on the sides of the boxes, and of course in Spanish. And then he gave him a whole bunch of syringes for those injectables, and told Jack that this is what he needed. So he put together the kits for Salvador, and actually put a kit for Salvador together for a little protection for him as well. So anyway, 4 days have passed now. 5 days actually have passed. They are all doing so much better. The sister who was the worst off told me that she can finally taste her food. So they're all doing really good. I want to thank you so much, Jack. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for helping out my buddy. And, you may have saved a life, amigo. And if you ever have symptoms, make sure you go off and see Freddie. He knows what's going on around the neighborhood, if you know what I mean. And look here. Former Mexican President Vicente Fox, age 79, and his wife, Marta, age 51, both double vaccinated. Both have been hospitalized for the Rona. He joins another ex-president, Felipe Calderon, 58 years old, who says that he was half jabbed when he contracted the Rona and was treated for symptoms on June the 2nd. Calderon just took his second dose of the Happy Juice July the 19th. And of course, if we're talking about Mexican presidents and the Rona, we can't forget the one that we have now, Lopez Obrador, who is 67 years old. He caught the Rona back in January, which sidelined him for 2 weeks, if you remember. And of course, he was unvaxxed at the time. Strange they're all still alive. But we'll check back with Vicente Fox next week. You never know. I don't know about you, but I kind of miss the flu, the common cold. I wonder what happened to those things. Here's a story about a vacationer who's happy to be alive. My wife was watching television the other night, and she yells from the other room. She says, "Barry, come quick." And by the time I got there, I just captured the tail end of the report. She says, "You missed it. A tourist almost got eaten by a crocodile in Puerto Vallarta." So I stopped and I thought about it for a minute, and I said, let me guess. She took a nighttime swim. My wife looks at me and says, "How'd you know?" Anyway, here's the report from Bay Area, ABC News 7, Novato, California.
A Novato teenager is back home and recovering, thankfully. In the hospital, though, after getting attacked by a crocodile while vacationing in Mexico. She shared her tale of terror, really, with ABC 7 News anchor Liz Kreutz.
It was supposed to be a fun getaway before going off to college, but for Kiana Hummel, her vacation to Puerto Vallarta turned into a real-life nightmare when she was attacked and dragged into the ocean by a 12-foot crocodile.
All of a sudden it came up, and then I felt heaviness on my leg, and then I looked down and I feel like I'm getting pulled.
The 18-year-old Novato high grad, now recovering at Marin General, says this happened at the Marriott resort where they were staying. Sarah Laney, a vacationer from St. Louis, was nearby on the beach and heard it happen.
Between 11:45 and midnight, they started screaming. And so me and my friends, we jumped up and we ran.
The group saw Kiana battling with the massive animal. Its teeth latched deep into her right shin and then her left ankle.
And I was just kind of hitting him wherever I could.
Eventually, they were able to free Kiana from the crocodile's grip and carry her away from shore. Her mom, back home in Marin, learned about the attack over FaceTime.
I see her, crying and just asking for help. She multiple times asked for an ambulance.
When she eventually got to a hospital, Kiana's mom said they demanded thousands of dollars before treatment.
First, they wanted like $11,000 US dollars.
In a statement to ABC 7 News, a spokesperson for Marriott confirmed the crocodile attack and said, "The safety and security of our guests and associates are our top priority, and we can confirm that appropriate signage as well as night patrolling and red flags are properly in place." But Kiana and Sarah both say nobody at the property warned them to be careful. Neither had seen the warning sign, which they say was small, mostly in Spanish, and not lit up at night. According to this Spanish-language news report, another woman was attacked on that same beach in 2018. Kiana and her mom hope their story serves as a warning to others.
That call could have been a total different call.
A week later, Kiana is still here at Marin General, where she is expected to undergo a second surgery. Doctors say she will have a full recovery, but it's going to take time. Friends have set up a GoFundMe account to help with her expenses. In Marin County, Liz Kreutz, ABC 7 News.
Okay, I have a link to that video report in the show notes. If you'd like to see that, you can check them out, of course, at www.puertovallartatravelshow.com. I wonder if she had traveler's insurance. Anyway, let that be a lesson to all of you. You should not be swimming at night, especially near the mouths of rivers. And just remember that. And let's hope that this young lady has a speedy recovery. That reminds me, I got to get my traveler's insurance. So you're thinking, crocodile attack. What else could go wrong? Well, what about another parasailer breaking loose from a boat tow and flying freely across the city? Remember that happened a couple years ago? It happened again. Strong rainstorm, which was accompanied by some high gusts of wind, sent a 20-year-old tourist from Guanajuato on a ride that she will never forget. In fact, most of the city won't forget it either. A lot of people saw her and took pictures of her flying across the sky. Listen to an eyewitness describe the moments that are leading to this tow rope breaking. I have the video embedded with a couple others in the show notes. Now, remember that this guy, he was a little bit excited, and he threw in a couple of colorful words. Obviously, he's an English major, so if you have kids in the car, you might want to cover or fast forward 45 seconds. We're beginning 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Check this out. Storm's coming in. That's all rain out there and lightning, and this parasailer's stuck. It's so windy they can't reel him in. Oh, dude, if it snaps, look. Dude, he's got to be scared as shit. See everybody panicking, trying to help. Damn, he's going. Oh, shit. Holy. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Fucking A. Dude. They just lost that, dude.
And she flew about a kilometer inland, and she started from in front of the Sheraton Hotel where that video was taken. You can see the video. You can see her fly over the top of the Sheraton. And then she flew into Versailles where she landed. She actually dropped that parachute just like the instructor told her to do. You know, those idiots that took her out in the first place. Anyway, you can see the video of her making a landing. She controlled it pretty good. The chute got caught on an electric utility pole. She ended up dangling there in her harness about 15 feet off the ground for a couple of minutes while she was cut loose. She was totally conscious and alert when she made that landing. And, then she was, of course, attended to by paramedics and miraculously survived with just a couple of bruises and scrapes. And the crap scared out of her. So, anyway, check out the videos and ask yourself, do I want an e-ticket ride like that? Does anyone even know what an e-ticket ride is? If you do, I suggest you're pretty much too old to get on one of those, if you know what I mean. You know better. It has been raining a lot in Puerto Vallarta. Over the last week and a half since we spoke last, there have been like 14 inches of rain that have fallen. And that really brings, the totals to like 30, I think it's 36 or 37 inches compared to last year's. I think we're ahead by about 3 inches from last year. So a lot of good rain. It's good to have it. Thank you, Angela, for keeping track. And speaking of rain and saturated soils and stuff like that, there was a landslide yesterday in the Amapas area of Puerto Vallarta. A piece of Calle Santa Barbara fell into the construction site just south of the El Caballero statue, the little boy on the seahorse, towards the end of Playa Los Muertos, just a couple of doors down from Vallarta Shore, south of Vallarta Shores. There's this big gash in the hillside. This is a project by Serena. It has been on and off since they started the work, and there was actually a stop work order on that project. It was a federal order since January or February, but they were actually doing a little bit of work on it, and the soil, of course, was saturated with water, all this water that is coming down this week. And they had done a little undercutting of the earth underneath that road, and the builders seem to have caused a collapse, causing pipes to burst, sewage pipes and water pipes. And then when that was happening, further erosion happened, and it was just a mess. There's a building that's directly above that looks like it could be a big issue. It will definitely be national news for sure. It is news all over Puerto Vallarta right now. Just think about this. Any of you folks out there an investor that bought, with the pre-construction discount? Anybody over there? Anybody? Do you know anybody? Wow. I mean, we're going to be following this for some time. And speaking of construction, the hydroelectric dam project has restarted again. It looks like, while we're all preoccupied with the disaster and disease, looks like somebody's trying to pull a fast one. Looks like the hydroelectric project ain't dead yet. Word has it that the fences were taken down and the Clausurado sign was taken down, and it looks like they're trying to restart the dam over on the Rio Horcones. This is the dam that empties into the ocean over at Boca de Tomatlan. And I will have a report on this next week. And when I get down there in a couple of weeks, I'm going to go on down there, take some pictures, and find out what they're all up to. Hopefully there's so much water that they can't do jack. We'll find out. And like I said, I'll be down there doing a little bit of cub reporting. Stay tuned for that. Now, last time we spoke, I told you about my plans to fly from Tijuana to Puerto Vallarta. And, I had asked some months back for any of you listeners who had done this trip, if you had ever done it before, and I hadn't heard from anybody. But here I got a letter from Fred, and he's giving me some Tijuana tips. Here it goes. He says, "Hey, Barry, I just listened to your Mito podcast. I think your plan needs a little bit of revising. By the way, I fly to and from Tijuana all the time on Volaris or Viva Aerobus. I love both airlines. I also use the CBX crossing, which is brilliant. Yes, you are correct. No need for COVID tests when you're flying domestic within Mexico, and the U.S. Customs does not ask for any negative COVID test when you walk across the border. At least that's the situation currently. Who knows what it'll be like 3 months from now. Anyway, if you are going to park in San Ysidro, you shouldn't go back up to San Diego to catch the shuttle from Amtrak. You should just walk across the border and grab a cab from the airport, or take the Amtrak from LA to San Diego and then shuttle or Uber to the border. Or you could park at CBX. Check out CBX. It's great. P.S. The best thing about CBX is on returning to the USA, there are no lines at U.S. Customs. Good luck. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Great podcast, by the way. I love Mito and El Tuito. Saludos, Fred." All right. Well, thank you, Fred. I checked out the CBX, Fred, and I got to tell you, what a find. Now, Fred's a cool dude. When he goes to town, he keeps me informed about Rambo, their friends, and I love his idea here. So anyway, CBX serves not only as a parking lot, but it is a pedestrian bridge that leads to the Tijuana airport from the United States. I went on the wiki pages and I found actually a tie to Puerto Vallarta in kind of a roundabout way. You'll see about that. The first discussion, this is what it reads, the first discussion of a cross-border terminal was part of a proposal initiated by Mexico's Minister of Public Works, Secretario de Obras Públicas Gilberto Valenzuela Esquiero, who under Mexico President Gustavo Diaz Ordaz was directed to modernize Mexico's airports and transportation system. And of course, you've heard of Gustavo Diaz Ordaz. That is the name of the Puerto Vallarta airport. Anyhow, Gilberto Valenzuela approached then the mayor of San Diego, Frank Curran, with a proposal to jointly develop a Tijuana San Diego Airport on Otay Mesa. But at the time, San Diego considered Otay Mesa was way too remote. After a quarter century of negotiations and planning for a cross-border terminal, construction began at the Tijuana Airport in October of 2013, and work on the U.S. side began June of 2014. The cross-border terminal was completed in December of 2015. The Tijuana cross-border terminal was named the Cross-Border Express, or CBX, and opened to public passenger service on December the 9th, 2015. However, the official opening ceremony didn't take place until April 2016. It makes Tijuana Airport a geographically binational airport, unlike the binational airports serving the Swiss cities of Basel, entirely on the French territory, and Geneva, entirely on the Swiss territory. The CBX terminal is physically located in the United States, but serves an airport whose main terminal and runways are in Mexico. A pedestrian bridge spans the United States-Mexico border, connecting passenger terminals between the two countries. It was the creation of Ralph Nieders, who introduced the concept and infrastructure design in Mexico City in 1989 and San Diego in 1990. The structural scheme allows passengers originating and destined to the United States direct access to the Tijuana Airport, and equally gives Mexican and international carriers operating from Tijuana Airport direct access to U.S. passenger market. The terminal in the Otay Mesa neighborhood of San Diego allows passengers to check in on the U.S. side of the U.S.-Mexico border, cross a 390-foot pedestrian bridge across the border, clear Mexican immigration and customs, and board flights at the Tijuana Airport. Passengers arriving in Tijuana are equally able to cross the pedestrian passenger bridge into the Otay Mesa passenger terminal, clear U.S. passport controls and U.S. customs, and exit on the United States side. The cost to use the bridge is approximately $15 each way, so $30 round trip, and it's just great. So thank you, Fred. Thank you for that tip. I will be reporting when I get back, when, of course, this is going to be the end of the year. Who the heck knows what it's going to be like by the end of the year? JR had his cataract surgery on one of his eyes. It was a great success. He's going to wait until the eye doctor heals from his hand surgery. And, of course, there's going to be a big backlog over at the hospitals. So we're going to wait for that second eye for a little while. But, hey, no need to take any chance of meeting Mr. COVID in the hospital, right, JR? So, anyway, all of you who donated, all of you people who donated money for his operation, thank you very much. JR thanks you profusely. They expect after his second eye surgery, he will be seeing 2020. And remember, JR, when you come to Puerto Vallarta and you want to take a tour, just go to vallartainfo.com. You can reserve your tour right through him. He'll be able to help you even better when his eyesight is 2020. Now, I have a half a dozen emails that I need to answer. I'll get to them hopefully before the end of this week. I have just been so busy selling houses. I cannot believe it. It's been just craziness in my business. So it's kind of difficult sometimes to get one of these episodes out. But I do appreciate your emails more than you can ever imagine. And I will get back to you as fast as I can, I promise, this week. I just listed 2 properties this week, as a matter of fact. They should be on the market in a week and in escrow in a couple of days. It's crazy, I'm telling you. Anyway, let's speaking of real estate, let's talk long-term rentals in Puerto Vallarta with our featured guest, JJ Vallarta. There are many ways to find a place to lease in paradise. There's a right way and there is a wrong way. We've heard horror stories of long-term rentals gone bad by guests over the years. And, I'm here to help you avoid the possibility of losing money, losing time, a little peace of mind by hooking you up with guys like JJ. Now, I'm going to let you hear from him about the kind of properties that he represents, the things to look for in a landlord, the things that Mexican landlords are looking for in a tenant, and what you should be looking for in a place to live. It's really important for you to know the neighborhood that you want to live in. Remember, you're going to be signing a lease for a year, and you don't want any avoidable surprises to befall you. Now, remember, there are no guarantees. I mean, wherever you go, people move, people come and go. You can't know who your neighbor is at all times. But if at all possible, before you commit to a property, you need to troll the area a bit. You need to go there. You need to check out the neighborhood at different times of the day and different times of the night. Maybe park nearby, or if you don't have a car, get a friend to drive you nearby. Check out the activity, the foot activity. Check out the noise, the roosters, the banda music, the music from nearby clubs. These are pretty easy to do, and they will save you some time and some grief, especially if you don't want to end up living next door to Animal House. Now, for cheaper digs, you might go online and check out a place called Mano a Mano. I have a link to them in the show notes. You can look at them. These are real cheap properties. You can rent them all over town, different colonias. Some of them you will not recognize the name of the colonias, but you're going to be looking at properties that are going to be maybe $150 to $350 a month for some of these. I mean, they go higher. But remember that when you are dealing with these people, these landlords are more than likely going to be speaking limited English, if any. It's going to be mostly Spanish. It's kind of like Craigslist, so don't go alone. And make sure that you check out the property with a friend, if you know what I mean. And but anyway, this guest, you don't have to worry, okay? You won't need a bodyguard. He's going to find you a beautiful place in paradise with a good landlord. And, hopefully with fairly good neighbors. And remember, he can't help it. He can't help the neighbor thing, okay? But anyway, let's find out exactly how he's going to be able to do this for you, shall we? So let's go right now to one of my very favorite places in Puerto Vallarta, let alone the world, I guess. It's Cuates y Cuetes. Let's pull up a chair, have a nice cold cerveza, a little Mexican air conditioning in the form of a fan in order to create a bit of a breeze. And let's meet my buddy, JJ Vallarta, leasing properties long-term in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. JJ, thanks for coming on the show today.
I'm glad to be here.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and what was your path that led you to Puerto Vallarta?
I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, and lived in Scottsdale, Arizona for 30 years, owned a mortgage company there, and lived in the Pinnacle Peak area, and after the mortgage crisis, closed my company down. I had about 200 employees and 9 offices in 4 states, and busy time. And so I just decided to close my company down. And a few years later, after the crisis, I came to Mexico, where things slow down, things are relaxed. And I did a lot of research, looked at cities all over Mexico, and came up with Vallarta. Vallarta was just on the beach and a lot of opportunities in a growing city.
So you had never been?
I'd never been here.
How about Mexico? Have you been
I had been to Cabo San Lucas years ago, and I had been to Puerto Peñasco several occasions.
All right,
yes.
So you are familiar with it, but that was the first trip.
I just love the Mexico lifestyle. Things are laid back, things slow down. And in Vallarta, since I've been here, it's every day Saturday.
How did you get here?
I drove down.
You drove down?
3 days.
Yeah.
And drove on the highway only during the day. As soon as the dark hit, I got off the highway and got a hotel.
Yeah.
But it took me 3 days, and it's a great drive, beautiful drive. and loved it.
Were there any? How about the roads? Are they in good shape?
You know, what's interesting, you'll go for a ways where the roads were perfectly smooth, and then you go for another 10 or 20 miles where the roads are in pretty bad condition. It just really depends on the area.
Yeah, what town you're in, right?
What town you're in, what colonia you're in. It just, it varied quite a bit.
Interesting. All right. And do you do that often? When you return to the States, you drive back or you fly back?
I fly back.
Okay.
Yeah, fly
All
back.
right.
I leave my car here.
Okay, good idea. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about what you did when you got here. I mean, what was your plan?
I really didn't know what I was going to do in terms of career. I just wanted to come down here where things slow down and relax. And I knew I was ready to do some type of work. I wasn't really ready to retire. I knew I was going to do something in the area of tourism. That's why I chose Vallarta. And I just looked around and talked to a couple agencies, and looked like the rental business was in high demand. And so I went into the rental business and love it. It's easy. It's fun. I meet a lot of people. And I only work about 2.5, 3 days a week. But I'm always available 7 days a week. But I love it. Really enjoy what I do.
Did you have to find a brokerage to do that with, or you? How did you work that out? How did you break in?
Yes, I found a brokerage that I worked for about 5 months, and I left there and just felt like I needed to go out on my own because all my clients were North Americans, and you really need to do business the North American way when you're working with visitors from U.S., Canada, Europe, Australia. And I found that the agencies really didn't understand that. So I went out on my own. I'd always been an entrepreneur, always been self-employed since I was about 25 years old. And so it was just time to do this on my own, and I love it.
All right, so when you say they don't do it the American way, what kind of things do they do that aren't quite the American way?
Well, the American way is two parties come together and they come to an agreement and they stick to the agreement and everybody's happy, and most importantly, we'll do a business again one day. Down here, it's just a little different. It's more like whoever wins gets the best deal. Yeah. And whether or not we'll do business again someday is not an important factor. So after about 6 months working for 2 different agencies, I had to go out on my own because all my clients were from the North American area. So yeah.
So how hard was that? Was that hard to do?
It really wasn't. It's just I had a lot of local Mexican property owners, a few Canadians, a few Canadian property owners, and they're looking for North American renters. And so that's really my market. I advertise on over 35 different Facebook pages, and so I get calls all the time from some local Mexican property owners, children or grandchildren who speak English. My Spanish is not very good. So I'll get a call. My grandfather says you do business with Hector, his friend, and he'd like to meet you and show you our properties. And I get those calls about 3 or 4 times a month. And so I go over and I take pictures and I advertise our properties. And I've got a contract writer, a good friend of mine, Emiliano Gonzalez, and he is a professional contract writer, writes all our contracts in Spanish and English, and it just works out really well.
A lot of times you read on Facebook pages and other, other social media posts that I sent some money and I showed up and they don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there are a lot of stories like that. Boy, that's a difficult question to answer. There are just simply some people here you cannot do business with. I've tried, and it doesn't work. And that's about all I can say.
All right, that's fine. I don't want to get you in trouble, JJ.
Right,
I don't want to get all right, so typically someone comes to you, says, my Uncle Tio says that you do a good job and all that stuff. What kind of a contract do you have with that seller? Or is there a contract with that seller?
There is no actual contract. It's just an agreement to work together. And if I'm doing my job, he stays with me. As long as he's doing what he needs to do or she needs to do in terms of a property owner, which means keep a place clean, keep it well painted, keep it functionally up to par, Something breaks down when my tenant is in their building, they fix it in a reasonable matter of time, then we continue doing business together. If that doesn't happen, then we don't do business very long. But all my property owners, and there's several, really do a great job because a lot of them understand what North Americans are looking for, what kind of standards they have. Those who don't, I explain to them, there's a different standard that they're looking for, and this is what you've got to meet if you want to rent your place. And they want that information from me. They want that input from me because they want to know.
Yeah. Being a bearer of bad news isn't always such a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And they understand that.
Yeah. What kind of properties do you represent?
I've had properties from $500 a month to $7,000 to $9,000 a month, but really what I focus on is properties at $750 US to $1,500 US per month. 15,000 pesos to 30,000 pesos. A few up to 35 and 40,000 pesos, but 90% of my business is in that area of 750 US to 1,500 US. That's what most people are looking for. I have a lot of nice properties that are in that area, and that's really my focus. That's the majority of the market.
Okay, and I guess when you have that kind of a price range, you're not looking at little hole in the walls. You're looking at these are nicer properties.
Oh yes, they're very nice places. I even have owners that own several properties, and they throw me a couple properties that are $500 a month. But for $500 a month, they're actually very, very nice, freshly built out.
Yeah.
But everything I advertise is really up to par. I mean, I don't advertise anything I wouldn't live in myself. And so everything's really, really nice that I advertise. I've got a couple properties that are very traditional decor, traditional architecture, and those properties, they've got to make sure that they're clean and well painted, and they're really in great condition.
To get a good price on a monthly rate, you're usually renting for a year round rather than like a 6-month period or during high season alone, that kind of thing. Is there a way that you kind of figure that kind of scale out? How do you figure that out?
How do I determine a price for a property?
Yeah.
It depends on the area and depends on the property, and I just come up with a price that really makes sense. What I tell owners is they've got to come up with a realistic price that's both attractive to them, the owners, and also the tenant, or it's going to sit there. And so we come up with a reasonable, realistic price, and then I suggest that they drop it down about 10% under that. If they do that and they price all their units that way, they'll stay full. My best owners follow those instructions a hair under the true market price, and they stay full. I've got a few that are higher, and I have to put their market up for advertisement, and it sits empty for 3 or 4 months, and nobody looks at it, and then he understands they're too high. So it just varies. It's a process sometimes. Most of the time, they'll agree to whatever I'm telling them it really will rent for.
Right.
And but it's got to be attractive to the tenant.
Right. So now, when you say now, we talk about attractive to the tenant. What is it that the American or the Canadian is looking for that has to be there to make that a rentable place?
Well, they've got
other than a bathroom and a shower or something like that.
Right. It's got to be in good condition and it's got to be attractive. It's got to have a washer and dryer. Not all my units do, but a lot of them do. They want to have, of course, a gas range and oven, air conditioning. All the units have air conditioning. I don't think I have any that have no air conditioning because that just doesn't work. But they want air conditioning, all the appliances, TVs, just everything that's got to be there. Comfortable furniture, easy access, views, if we can get views. A lot of my properties do have views. And that's really what they're looking for. So the property itself has got to look great, but the price has to look reasonable. I mean, they've got to look at the property and say, that's a great property and that's a great price. If they don't, the owner's just going to have an empty property sitting there for quite a while.
Right, and that builds up. That costs a lot of money.
Correct.
What happens if you get yourself a tenant that is not paying? What goes on there?
I have a couple of local property owners that are also Mexican attorneys, including my own landlord. And if you're not paying, then eventually they will be able to move you out legally. It takes a little time. They've got to serve you, and then you've got a few days to find a place, and that's the legal process. But I haven't had too much of that. I've only had it maybe twice in 4 years. But if you don't pay, you got to move out, and they will serve you. Once they serve you, I think you've got about 48 hours.
Hear that? There's none of this 30-day crap happening up here, okay? 48 hours.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right, so you have to get an attorney involved when that happens.
Usually, yes. They will have an attorney prepare the letter that is served to the tenant.
Okay. All right. So that's something that's important to know, too, if any of you folks are, putting your property out there, you want to know what to do.
Right.
Get an attorney.
Now, on the other hand, what if you're in a property and the owner's not fixing things that break down, because that does happen with any property? Then, again, you got to look at your contract, make sure your contract covers everything, that the owner does have to repair items. And, again, that doesn't happen very often. I don't have any owners that really aren't responsive. But there are issues with that you can contact an attorney and address that. But that doesn't happen too often. It really doesn't with my owners.
Yeah. Most of your properties in the general area of downtown Puerto Vallarta? Or?
I really just go from Conchas Chinas south to the Marina north. I used to go further north in the Marina, but I had a lot of people break contracts up in El Tigre and Nuevo because there just simply wasn't much to do. And that was the reason they all broke. So I really don't go further north than Marina.
Okay, that makes sense. What would you say is the fanciest property that you've leased here?
There was a penthouse with at the Bayview Grand. That's like a 4-bedroom. It's beautiful. It's about $6,000 a month, and they rented it for 2 months. Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah.
It was really nice. About 5,000-6,000 square feet. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of properties like that around here. So
there aren't a lot of properties out there like that. There are a few, and again, I really try to focus on properties that are affordable with most people, that the prices most people are looking for, and nice properties that are $1,500 or less. Yeah.
You ever walk into one that was just so ridiculously not rentable that you had to just tell this guy, you got to be joking me?
Yeah. When I first got here, there's a couple of times I went and looked at properties, and it just wasn't going to happen. I'm not going to put anybody in there, nor would they stay if I tried to. So I didn't even show it. I just said, look, I was shown one the other day that was a nice big property, but it was about a 50-yard hike up a hill.
Oh, yeah.
And so over Alta Vista. Yeah. And I just told him,
there's nobody's
going to make that
hike.
Thing. Nobody's going to make that hike.
Yeah. There are a lot of places around here that are just like that.
Yeah. Of course.
And very, very available.
Yes,
too, for some
reason. Great view. But it was too far up the hill, about 50-yard hike uphill, and wonderful view, but just wouldn't happen.
No, you'd die. You'd just die. Well, what about you? Where are you living? Where?
I live down in Centro. I like it down there. There's a lot going on. I'm a block off the Malecon. Got a 1-bedroom overlooking the ocean. Got an ocean view, and I love it down here. I've lived in Romantic Zone my first year. Loved it. I think it's probably the best place to live, Romantic Zone. And then I went to Versailles for 6 months. Versailles is a great little area, but there was just more going on for me. I'm still single, and more going on down in the Malecon area, and that's where I live.
All right, excellent. All right. Well, let's leave rentals for just a few minutes. Let's go on out into town. Let's talk a little bit about about the town. Let's talk a little bit about what you like to eat, because this is what everybody wants to know. They want to know what your favorite breakfast, lunch, and dinner place is. So if you could maybe share with us maybe your favorite breakfast. Do you wake up early enough for breakfast?
I do.
All right. Okay, good. All right.
I do wake up early enough for breakfast. Honestly, because where I live, and I have not cooked in 4 years. I do microwave once in a while.
Heart.
But I eat at Vegetarian Planet often.
Yeah?
They've got a great breakfast, best pancakes in town.
Really?
And a healthy lunch and dinner if I want whatever I want to eat there. There's other places I've gone to. Café des Artistes, a French restaurant, which is fantastic. I've eaten there. Interesting about Vallarta, and a lot of people ask me, what's the best restaurant? There are so many good restaurants here. There's so much good food here. Just pick a place and go. Los Muertos for pizza. And I love ceviche. I love Margarita Grill. There's a restaurant next to Margarita Grill called El Cantero. And they have great ceviche and probably the best guacamole I've eaten.
Really?
And great place. Joe Jack's is great. So a lot of different restaurants are really, really good here. Yeah. Sonora for steaks.
Yeah. There's Sonora Grill, right?
Sonora Grill.
Yeah.
Sonora Grill is great for steaks.
Yeah.
Really good.
All right. What about sushi? You got a favorite sushi spot?
I go to Yao up in Fluvial for sushi.
Yeah.
It's just a great ambiance, great decor, very contemporary, great lighting, and the food is fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that sounds good.
Yeah.
What about like a bar? What's your favorite bar in town?
Favorite bar again is Margarita Grill. Devil's Bar is a real friendly place in the Malecon. Alan, who owns Devil's Bar, is a great guy. El Cantero. Those are the places I normally go.
Those are great bars.
Yeah.
What about going out dancing? You ever go out dancing? You club?
A little bit, yeah. We go down to the Malecon, go to a place there. I usually let the girl pick the place where she wants to go dance. And
so, so you're a straight single guy.
Yeah.
And I look around here, and actually that makes you a commodity in Puerto Vallarta. So how's that working for you, okay?
Works great. I love Latin women. I date Mexican girls and girls from Colombia and Venezuela, and I really like Latin women. They're very sweet, absolutely beautiful, and not complicated.
And you hear that, guys? You hear that, guys?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Right.
It's sweet. Very nice.
So don't be afraid. Come down here. If you're a single guy and looking for a little friendship, so to speak.
Yeah, Latin women, the most beautiful women in the world.
Well, I have to agree with you. And my wife isn't listening to this. I can say this. If you had a day off, and let's say we're going to go somewhere for the day, you had to come back, where would you go?
I'd really like to go to Punta Mita. I hear a lot of great things about it. I have not been north of Bucerias. I have not traveled outside of town as much as I'd like to, but I hear a lot of great things about Punta Mita, San Sebastian. I'd like to go further north and spend some time, go up there for a couple of days. And I'd like to go to Yalapa. I have not been to Yalapa yet. I've not been south of Boca too much, and I'd like to go to Yalapa too.
Yeah. Well, come on, get thee to the pier. Hop on Collectivo.
That's
It'll take you right down there.
Yeah.
The first one's at 11, so get on out there.
Okay.
All right.
Good. 11.
11
That's
o'clock.
good.
Yeah, it's right down your alley, man. It's a perfect hour.
Yeah.
Let's see. So if it's a 3-day, maybe if it's a 3-day trip, what would you do?
I hear so much about San Sebastian. It's just I'd like to take a date up there for about 3 days or 4 days and just spend some time up there. But I hear a lot of great things about San Sebastian, the architecture and the restaurants, and that's where I'd really like to go. I've done a little research, and it's a beautiful area, and that's probably my next stop.
Okay, all right. And what about a word of advice for a first-time traveler to Puerto Vallarta?
Word of advice, it's a lot more safe than you think it is, number one. But really, most importantly, I think that when you come down here, things slow down, which is the number one reason we come here in the first place, because things slow down here. Sometimes people get frustrated because things take a little longer here. It's not going to change. It's been that way for hundreds of years, and it's going to stay that way. So the best thing to do is just simply adjust to the culture, how things are done, how quickly things are done. It does take a little longer here, but you get used to it. Again, I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona. Things are very fast-paced. A lot of entrepreneurs there, and down here, things slowed down. So it took me about 6 or 8 months to slow down, but finally got it. And it's not going to change.
Yeah, you can't change that.
No.
How about a word of warning? Any words of warning for something?
Words of warning. If you do decide to drive down here, the drive is actually very nice. It's a great drive, but you only want to drive when it's sun up. Sun starts setting, get off the highway and get a hotel, and you're perfectly fine.
Okay, good to know. Doing rentals and stuff like that, what are things that people should be asking a rental agent? What kind of questions should they be asking
regarding rentals?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously you can take a look at the property, but you want to know, what is the owner like? And I tell people all the time, the owner is just as important as the property itself, and you've got to ask questions about the owner. My owners, again, I go through owners and make sure that they're taking care of properties and the properties are up to par and functional. So that's really the big question.
Right.
You can take a look at the property, you can see the property, it's obvious, it's right there in front of you, but what's the history of the owner? What's the reputation of the owner? And all my owners are really great people, really responsive to take care of their properties, have pride in ownership, which is very, very important. That's key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Excellent. That's good to know. Well, all right. So let's go back. Let's go back to JJ Vallarta. What's the name of you got a name for your company?
My company name is JJ Vallarta.
There, JJ Vallarta.
My name is Jeff Alberts,
Uh-huh.
and I talked to a girl who does branding. She says, you really need to have a catchy name, a fun name. You got to be different. And so she and I talked, and my nickname has been JJ since I was 5 years old, and she just said JJ Vallarta, and I thought it sounded great. And so that's the business name I use.
Uh-huh. So JJ Vallarta, and you can be found on Facebook.
Yes, Facebook.
And we will have a bunch of links to different JJ Vallarta Facebook pages. You'll be able to find them on my website over at www.puertovallartravelshow.com. Look at the JJ Vallarta rental dude in the show notes. You'll be able to find all that good stuff. Is there anything that I've forgotten? Is there anything that you want to add before we say goodbye today?
I think we've covered a lot. I just want to reiterate that Vallarta is such a great town. It's a very popular city with North Americans, but at the same time, it's still got that small town, sleepy town feel to it that some of the larger resort cities have lost. It is easily the safest resort town, I believe. And but it's just a lot of fun here. Every day Saturday is my saying. And things slow down. There's no stress in the air. If you're 15 minutes late, you're still on time. And it's just a great place to be. I suggest come down here. You'll love it. Everybody does.
Well, I do, and I love what you do, and I want to thank you for taking the time and talking with me and, letting my listeners know a little bit about you. And I truly appreciate that.
Thank you for the opportunity of being here. I really enjoyed this, and I'd like to do it again. Vallarta's fantastic. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks a lot. All right. Thank you, JJ. I have links to connect you to JJ in the show notes, as well as pictures of some of the properties that he represents, prices and stuff like that. So you can get an idea of basically how far your dollar will go in Puerto Vallarta. All right. Well, that should do it for this week. Next week, I want you to stay tuned for more on-the-ground reports from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, with travel tips, great restaurant and excursion ideas, and more. But until then, remember that this is an interactive show where I depend on your questions and your suggestions about all things Puerto Vallarta. If you think of something that I should be talking about, well, please reach out to me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending us a message. And remember, if you're considering booking any type of tour while you're in Puerto Vallarta, you must go to vallartainfo.com, that's JR's website, and reserve your tour through him right from his website. Remember, this is a value for value proposition of his experience and on-the-ground knowledge of everything Puerto Vallarta. In exchange for your making a purchase of a tour that you would do anyway, you're just doing it through him as a way of saying thank you. Thank you, JR, for being our guide. It costs no more than if you were going to use someone else, so do it, really. And when you do take one of these tours, email me about your experiences. Maybe you can come on board and share with others what you liked or didn't like about the tour. Again, contact me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending off a message. And don't forget, he's got his maps, his DIY tours, his revitalized happy hour board, and more. I have links to all of those in the show notes. And once again, if you like this podcast, please take the time, share it with a friend, subscribe, give me a good review wherever you happen to be listening to it. That way we can get more and more people, the word about what's happening, the magic, this place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And remember, I made it easy for you to do just that with each episode I create. But if you haven't been to my website, you really need to have a look there. I have links to the places that we talk about, interesting pictures, and more right there in my blog posts and the show notes for each episode of the show. So check them out for sure if you haven't already. All right? Thank you so much to JJ Vallarta. Follow him on Facebook. I have links to him in the show notes as well as pictures. Make sure you check that out. And hey, thanks to all of you for listening all the way through this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. This is Barry Kessler signing off with a wish for you to slow down, be kind, and live Vallarta lifestyle. Nos vemos, amigos.
Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de amor junto al mar. Solo camino eterno por la playa, me encuentro junto al río cuando todo está en calma. Pronto cae la noche, me brillas Puerto Vallarta, samba de Puerto Vallarta.